Jesse, thank you so much for being here. You may or may not know this, but I've been a huge fan of your work since I was literally an apprentice. I can remember flipping through your tattoo magazines and seeing your work and just being like completely in awe of your talent and thinking that I wanted to be that good someday. And so it's a pretty big deal for me that you're going to be on the podcast. So I appreciate you for doing this. If you're not familiar with Jesse, he's been tattooing for over 25 years. Is that accurate? Okay, over
Yep.
25 years. Owner and artist at Loose Screw Tattoo in Richmond, Virginia. Runs and hosts the Richmond Tattoo and Arts Convention and the Richmond Tattoo Academy. Two seasons of Ink Master, and just an overall badass as an artist, as a shop owner, as an entrepreneur. So I'm really excited to get to talk to you today. So that all being said, how did you get here? Give us the rundown. Like, I know you went to college for art, but what I like to know is why did you do that? What made you think that you could be an artist? Like, who gave you permission to do that?
Yeah. I've always wanted to be an artist since I was young. I have sketchbooks all the way back from 2000 from when I was 12 years old. And I always told my parents that I wanted to be an artist, and that's what they always knew that I wanted to be. But my dad, being a pretty pragmatic person, he was like, hey, being an artist is tough to make money off of. So you should probably start looking at different avenues just in case it doesn't work out. So I immediately started kind of pivoting towards being a marine biologist. That was my goal. I wanted to like hang out with fish and, you know, Shamu and stuff like that
I also
back when I
wanted to
was
be a
younger.
marine biologist when I was a kid. That's funny.
Did you know what a marine biologist was back then?
I just thought I was going to get to pet dolphins and like hang out with fish. So,
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought too. And then when I was going to college, there was some classes for marine biology, and what I learned was it has nothing to do with the actual animals. It's all about the ecosystem and a bunch of biology and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. But anyways, so I was drawing forever, and then when I graduated high school, I still wanted to go to art school, but my dad was like, "Hey, how are you going to afford college?" And I didn't really even think about it. None of my parents had been to college, so we didn't know anything about student loans. I was in Heidelberg, Germany at the time, and so I ended up joining the army uh, because my dad, that's the path my dad knew. And so he kind of pushed me in that direction. I joined the army. And while I was in the army, I was still doing art. And I started drawing caricatures at Busch Gardens. And then I met a guy at Busch Gardens who knew a guy who was tattooing out of his house. So he introduced us. It was this guy named Carlos. He had just gotten out of prison, uh, you know, was just
sick.
using a little ghetto gun made out of a toothbrush and a Walkman motor and a sewing needle. And I used to just hang out, and I wasn't planning on being a tattoo artist. I just wanted to be around other artists. So I would hang out with him, and he'd be tattooing, and we'd just be shooting the shit, and I'd be drawing. And eventually one day he was like, hey, you want to do a tattoo? And I was like, sure. So he taught me how to make a little ghetto gun, and I made it. And I went home and did my first tattoo on one of the guys that was in the military with me. And after I finished that tattoo, everybody just started lining up at the front door to get tattooed by me. Obviously not because they were good, just because I was doing them for, at that point I was doing them for free. So
That's awesome. So it's this is one of those things where, my entire career was like people who teach themselves how to tattoo is like it was always like frowned upon and looked down on. And the longer I'm in this career and in this industry, the more I have almost more appreciation for people who do it that way, because that is like the absolute hardest fucking way to learn how to tattoo. And it takes so much more grit and dedication and focus to try and figure it out on your own and get good at it. And you definitely have figured it out and definitely, are a successful artist, so you never had like a an actual apprenticeship from someone who was a professional. You learned everything on your own.
Yeah, I learned everything on my own initially, and I always tell everybody I tattooed for a year and a half out of the house with no real training. I mean, aside from my friend who was in prison and learned how to use the ghetto gun, but and that I'd stumble across individuals here and there who were also tattooing out of their house, and we'd all kind of share information. But uh, it wasn't until I got into my first tattoo shop where I feel like I really started learning. I mean, I was literally scrubbing tubes barehanded in my first tattoo shop because I just
Oh
didn't know any
Lord.
better. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so there's these hard lessons that I learned when I started tattooing in a real tattoo shop. Uh, Even though the artists who were working there weren't amazing artists, there was just these little things that are just common sense in the tattoo world that I didn't have because I wasn't in that environment. So whenever I get the opportunity to kind of push an artist in one direction or another, I always try to push them towards an apprenticeship.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, so I got tattooed by you in, I think it was, how old was my son? It was 2008. And
Yep, I
you
remember.
started a big piece on my ribs, which unfortunately is not done because I got pregnant. But I remember you telling a story about, because at the time you didn't really have a lot of tattoos. And I remember you saying how someone thought that you stole someone's portfolio and were pretending like you were a tattoo artist because you didn't look like a tattoo artist. They didn't believe that you were actually doing it, and they were like coming to fuck you up. But like you were like, no, it's my work, I swear. Like, tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean the story. I guess the part about me not looking like a tattoo artist, I don't know that that had relevance in their thought process. Basically, I went into the one of the local tattoo shops here, and I wanted to get a job, and so I brought my portfolio. They said that they weren't hiring, and then I guess after I left, one of the portfolios went missing, and because I had come in there and I was a scratcher, looking for
Mhm.
a job, I guess they just thought that I had stolen the portfolio. So then what they did is they called me back, and I thought I was all excited, thinking I'm going to get a job. And I walk in there, and this guy that I had never met before was like, "Hey, I went to go shake his hand, and he just like turned around and was like, 'Follow me.'" And I was very confused. I was like, "Did he not see my hand or whatever?" So I followed him, went into the back, and there was he had me sit down. I sat down. He wanted to see my portfolio, and then as I was sitting there, the rest of the shop just started trickling in, and there was probably, I don't know, 8 tattoo artists there just standing around. I'm like, man, this is a hell of an interview. And once everybody got in there, he got in my face and he was like, "Where the fuck is my portfolio?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Like, I promise you, this is my portfolio. Everything in here I tattooed." And and he was like, just kind of coming at me real aggressively. And eventually I took him. I was like, "Listen, man." I was like, "I'll do whatever I got to do to prove." Because I mean, this was one of the best shops in Richmond at the time. I was like, "I'll do whatever I got to do to prove to you that I didn't steal your portfolio." I was like, "If you want, you can come back to my house. I'll show you everything." And he did. I ended up like taking him to my house, and I think after that he felt a little like embarrassed. And then they eventually found the portfolio. It was behind someone's desk or something at the
Stop it.
shop.
What?
And then shortly after that, I got a job there. So
Oh man. Oh my God. Oh, that's good. That's
yeah,
funny. Yeah,
it was.
whenever when you were doing my rib tattoo, it was like the back of a gallery. There was like a tattoo room back there, and that was the first time I'd ever been in a tattoo shop that didn't look like a street shop, because that's what came up in was just like a regular street shop. And I was just like, oh, this guy's got like paintings in here and there's like art everywhere. This is fucking cool. And it was just everything that you did was so different than what I was used to. And I wonder, like, is that on purpose or is that a result of the way that you started tattooing? Because I can remember you like telling me things like you timed your tattoos, like you had like a timer and you tracked like the exact time you were tattooing. And I'm like, that's so fucking smart. And why is that not a normal thing that everyone does? Like this guy's got like a whole different mindset around everything. Like it was awesome. I thought it was great, but it was just so different. Is that, just coming from a different world and coming in your own way, or were you purposely trying to do things different?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I think that sometimes when people are different, people think that they're trying to be different and that's why they are. But I just kind of like, if there's a problem, I try to figure out a solution for that problem. And at that particular point in time, I think we were still using coil machines. I believe there were voltage regulators out there that could track time a little bit, or power supplies. But the kitchen timer was perfect. I could start it and stop it when I was going. So I had a little kitchen timer, and I would start and stop it. Um, but I think all the things that I was doing differently was just trying to, like I said, solve a problem. I mean, I wasn't doing flash at the time, so there was no need for flash on the walls. And I was in that shop. It was this girl named Thea Duskin's shop, or gallery. So her mom had the front half, and then we tattooed in the back. But it was the first shop where I worked at like that as well. So, but we didn't need flash. We had all our own clients, and we were drawing our own stuff. So.
Yeah, well, it was super inspiring to me. So you were such a hard ass too. And you were like, I think we scheduled like 3 hour appointments. And there was like one session where I was like, man, I don't think I could do it this time. Like, that's like, it fucking hurts today. And you were like, pay for the whole session and I'll let you go. And I was like, fuck. Like, all right, fine. I'll sit here. But,
Well, it's funny because obviously I'm not a hard ass, but I also realize that if you want to get the most out of your clients, you got to like draw those hard lines. I mean, there's been times I've been tattooing my clients and I want so bad to finish this piece that I have told them, hey, if you sit for whatever time you sit past this time, I'll give you for free, just to kind of like see if I can, push them past that space where they're done. But the majority of the time they say no. So I mean, it's like they don't even care if it's free. They just want to get it. They just want to get out the chair. So,
yeah. I mean, you got 2 more hours out of me that day, so I thought I was
oh,
done,
good.
but I wasn't. But
Yeah, I know. There's multiple strategies that I think we all use for that. Like, there was this client one time I was tattooing her at a tattoo convention, and I tattooed her for probably about 3 hours in, and she was like, "I don't think I could take much more." And I was like, "We just got 15 more minutes." And I ended up stretching her to 7.5 hours,
like 15
just
more
by
minutes
telling
for
her
the
we had
next.
15 more minutes. So.
That's hilarious. So your style is very, I mean, even in the genre of new school, I feel like your style is very unique. Um, how is it that you're able to do this for so long? You hear a lot of these other artists that have been, doing their particular style for the same amount of time and they're struggling and they're, having a hard time staying busy. What is it you think that you're doing differently that is keeping you relevant, is keeping you busy? Because I feel like you're doing fine. What's different?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bunch of different things. I think, marketing is one. You got to make sure that people remember you regardless. I think, I heard something one time. It was like talking about Coca-Cola. It's like everybody knows what Coca-Cola is. Everybody knows that brand. But if they stopped marketing, would everybody remember them? And would they continue to be a dominant brand? And just that thought process there made me realize that no matter where I am in my career, even if I'm doing good, I need to just constantly be in people's eyes at some capacity, whether it's doing podcasts or whether it's, churning out artwork or showing up at tattoo conventions, just always being in the ecosystem at some capacity. And so I would say that's one piece of it, is just making sure that you're in the ecosystem consistently. I think another thing is just passion. I mean, I'm very passionate about art in general, and it doesn't have to be new school tattoos or graffiti or murals or anything like that. The things that I'm probably most interested in, I'm just interested in art. I love art. I love all different styles of art, And I think that that's what keeps me hungry and keeps me inspired is, I think a lot of these people who maybe are whatever falling off, it's they were always looking above them, right? They were always looking at the artists that came before them, the older artists, who were in the magazines or whatever it might be. And then eventually you get to a point where the amount of artists that are above you is less than the amount of artists that are below you. When I say below, I mean like time wise, or age wise. And so then you get to a point where you have to start looking at the younger artists and at the less experienced artists because you are one of the older artists and one of the more experienced artists. And so, a lot of my inspiration nowadays comes from the younger artists and the ones with less experience. Just looking at the way they apply tattoos is totally different than the way that I was taught to apply tattoos, and there were processes, how they tattoo. I mean, I was tattooing with Daria Pachenko, and she does 2 days in a row, and it's almost every tattoo she does is 2 days in a row. And the client sat great. There was no pain issues there, at least that they showed. And the tattoo, of course, is a huge tattoo that's done over the course of 2 full days versus having someone come in for 1 day and then having them wait for a month and come in for another day. I mean, I love that because it's like in and out, get it done, and then get on to the next one.
Yeah, I see people do that and I'm like, man, that's sounds awesome. Because also when you start a tattoo and they have to come back in a month or 2 months or whatever, like I forgot what the fuck I'm doing. Like I forgot what my plan was. I like have a new idea. I want to change shit. I I would much rather just the next day pick it back up and finish it. Like if I started painting or something, like I work on it every day and like, you don't if you let any kind of long time span in between sessions you lose interest. I'm kind of the same way with tattoos, but yeah, that's really cool. One of the things that I thought was so cool was seeing you at the spring break that I went to because I felt like I had no business being there because it's like all these like dark artists and they're all black and gray dudes, and then um I walk in the door. I bright colors. Like I do not do black and gray at all. I can't stand it. I walk in the door and there's fucking Jesse Smith. I was like, what? Why are you here? And like, also, why am I here? Why are we here? But I thought that was so cool because, and just to watch you just get involved and like, you're literally just there, like picking up information. And, I think our brains kind of work the same way. I try to find my inspiration and information outside of what I already do and already know. And I think a lot of people just keep leaning into the same shit they already do and already know. And I try to like, what can I pull from things that I don't necessarily like, or, a genre that I'm not necessarily going to do. Like, what can I pull from that to add to my own work? And my favorite part was when you started the painting because they have this big painting that everyone's jumping in and collabing on. And like I said, it's all these like dark artist guys. And I'm like, I'm not touching that shit. Like I don't have any business in that painting. And then Jesse goes up there and like I think you painted like an apple or something. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm in now. Like Jesse went in there and like touched it. Now I feel like I have permission to also get in there. But that was really cool to see you there. And kind of gave me a glimpse into like how much you do just appreciate art and like what other kinds of things are you going to or being a part of that is similar where you're getting outside of your realm.
I mean, anytime I mean, I just went down to the sessions that um, Squire Strand does.
Oh
I
yeah,
went
yeah.
down to Eden Symposium with Deanna's Eden Symposium. I mean, I think doing a lot of the collaborations just really help. I did a collaboration with Deanna James, and she taught me so much just watching her do stuff and asking her questions. I mean, she's an amazing oil painter. She taught me a ton of really cool things. When I did that collaboration with Daria, I did one with Christina Taylor, one with Azat. Just recently did a couple with Gunner, Derb. Just as many collabos as I could do because every artist has these like little idiosyncrasies and differences between two of them, you know? And it's like, I find that a lot of times and I used to do this too, when I went into a collaboration, it was like, this is what makes me comfortable and this is what I want to do. And I need my ink set up like this, and I need my machine like this, and I want to use these specific needles. Now, when I go to a collaboration, my goal is to use as many of the person who I'm collaborating with techniques. So if they use a different type of needle or a different type of machine, or they have a different setup or whatever, I typically am like, hey, you set up the way that you're comfortable and I'll work around you because I want to learn what it is that they're doing, you know, what type of inks they're using and what type of needles and machines. Like when I collaborated with Derb this past time, I used Derb's machine, you know, and it was I don't even remember exactly what it was. Um, but you know, just knowing like I want to try all these new things and these new techniques.
That's damn, I would have never thought that. And I was supposed to I was supposed to pick your brain about collaboration, so this kind of works. Let's put it on the podcast. Yeah, I never would have thought to do that. My Yeah, the way I was thinking about collaborations, like I'm literally sticking like my portion of the tattoo is gonna be my, like I do my thing here and they do
Yeah.
their thing there. But what's the point of that? We could just do fucking our own tattoos next to each other. But like, yeah, that makes so much sense to try and like do what they're doing or, pick up different tricks and stuff. Yeah, that's fucking smart. Damn. Okay.
Well, I'll say this, you know, about collaborations because I feel like everybody has their own idea of how a collaboration is. There's some people who are just like, you know, like me and Robbie Latos are doing something right now where I just, you know, he sent me a couple of quick sketches and then I sketch over top of that and then I send it back to him and then he sketches over top of that. So there's just, and that's the way that Nick Baxter and I did it. He sent me like kind of like a little mock up and then I drew over top of it and I sent it back to him and then he did stuff. So I think that there's a bunch of different ways of collaborating. And I think pigeonholing that is what really messes people up. So, like, you know who Dan Hazelton is?
No, I don't think so.
He's a biomech guy, a really good biomech guy up in Milwaukee. Anyways, him and I used to collaborate all the time where I would like do sketches and then I'd send them to him and he would color them in digitally. And so he's not doing anything on the actual like framework side of things, but he's bringing it to life with the rendering of it, you know. And so I don't think there has to be any like defined lines of what a collaboration is. To me, what a collaboration is you know two or more artists, but you know in this sense, two artists and trying to get the best out of each one and trying to create something that you would not be able to create on your own. Because if you can create it on your own, then what's the point? You know, you might as well just do it on your own.
Yeah.
But like if there's an artist who say is like really good at drawing, we'll say women, for example, and another artist that's really good at drawing critters. Well, then it makes sense for the person who does the woman to do the woman and the guy who does the critters to do the critters. And now, you know, maybe the guy who does the critters isn't good at drawing women and the one who's drawing women isn't good at drawing critters. So that creates a better piece in the long run, you know, or after all said and done.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, yeah, so God, you've done a lot of collabs. Like, I knew
A
a
lot of
few of them, but
collabs.
that's a lot. That's really
Well,
cool.
the thing is, I come from the graffiti world, right? And the graffiti world is very, there's a lot of collaborations that happen in the graffiti world. Typically, you know, and not for everybody. There are people out there that go solo, but a lot of times graffiti artists typically have like their homie, you know, their kind of partner. One of them's painting, the other one's looking out, and vice versa. But then there's also the production side of things where people would do these really cool pieces, and we would all kind of like paint together, and it was like very, you know, social in a way with the inner circle. And you know, as a tattoo artist, we're lucky because we do have a social circle, pretty significant one, versus people who are like etching comic books or you know, painting and stuff like that. So yeah, anytime that we can do a collaboration, I think that that kind of makes it more of a social situation.
Yeah, that's kind of the opposite of how I created art before I tattooed. I literally only created art for myself and never showed anybody. Like I would hide it. And so for me to have someone watching me tattoo or seeing what I did, that was like that was a really hard one for me to get over, especially just like showing someone my drawing that I did for a tattoo. It was really hard. But I think the longer I do it, the more I love the idea of collaboration. But it's not something that comes naturally to me because I want to just like don't look at it till it's done, you know.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that's a really tough one to get past. Um, so
Well, and
you,
there's a lot of ego involved in it too, you know, like
oh yeah,
when you're doing a collaboration, it's like you want it to be the specific way. And, you know, once again, I always kind of go back to the point of if you want something to be this specific way, then just do it yourself. You know, there's no point in collaborating if you're going to like strong arm the situation into being exactly what you want it to be, you know. And I've collaborated with a lot of artists who are very uncomfortable with that process, you know, and very uncomfortable when things aren't going exactly the way that they're used to them going.
yeah. And I guess that's the point is to get uncomfortable, right? Put
Yeah,
yourself in
because
the situations.
that's where you get the most growth, right? The most growth comes in times of discomfort.
Yeah, for sure. So you you have a lot of things that you are in. Like you so just it's not just tattooing. Like you own the shop. You are now running the convention. You have your um oh, I can't remember what the name of it is. Like your ink shelf thing, the method, what is it called? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
method tattoo system.
Method
Yep.
tattoo. Yeah. So you know, you have like your merch and like your little your story world. Like you have so many things that you do and you get into. Do you just get bored or like is it you just need constant change? Like why not just tattoos? Why do you expand into the other things?
Yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, I think it probably is a boredom thing at some capacity. I think also when I have an idea, I want to see it through all the way to the end. Like the method tattoo system, it was like, oh man, I really think this would be a great idea, and I want to see it all the way through. You know, my dad was always someone who said, "Don't start anything unless you can finish it." And so typically, if I start something, I'm going to finish it. And yeah, I don't know. I guess and I'm really bad about saying no, which I know I should get better at. But you know, when I get presented with an opportunity that's too good to be true, I'm happy to take it on. You know.
So um how do you see things through? Because like being someone who's so busy, when you have a new idea, like you have to have help. You have to have a team. I know you have like an assistant and like a whole crew. Is that something that you hire out for like I don't know, say you come up with a, you know, another, you know, new thing that you want to create and build. Are you finding people to help you or are you trying to do as much of it by yourself as you can?
You know, I think I always want to make sure that I know pretty much everything about my businesses, whether it's the tattoo convention or the shop or all these things. And then once I learn all of the things that I realize need to be involved in that, then I kind of hire and then I kind of train that to other people. So most of it's but it doesn't just go that way. I mean, I have a lot of employees who come through and they, of course, just say, "Hey, you know, I think we could do this better, or we could shift this," and of course, that helps as well. I mean, I've got a really good team, you know, and it's hard. You got to sift through a lot of humans in order to find some good ones. Uh,
For sure.
we have an internship program here at Loose Screw, and we essentially like have like two or three interns that are kind of coming through at a time, and then we just rotate them out. But out of, you know, 10 interns, we might find one person that's worth hiring. So it's pretty crazy. It's like a 10%,
So
you
you
know.
work with a college to get these interns?
Yeah, so we work with. I mean, they don't have to be the college. A lot of times, we'll even present that opportunity to people who want apprenticeships. So we just say, hey, you know, we don't do apprenticeships. However, if you'd like to spend a little time in a tattoo shop, then you can, you know, pull one of our 3 month internships, and then they come through here and typically have them doing like kind of, you know, some of the lower end work that's not the most enjoyable, but Some of them have gone all the way from internship to apprenticeship to, or internship to like receptionist to shop manager to apprenticeship and then to being a tattoo artist. I probably got, I think I have two people at my shop right now out of the 10 who started all the way at the bottom and worked their way all the way up. But we never promise anybody anything. It's just, you know, a lot of it revolves around their work ethic, their attitude, their artistic ability, and then whether we even have space available. We might not even be in a position to take on an apprentice. We want to make sure that we can actually put the time necessary to give them a good apprenticeship if that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's kind of the direction that I have found myself in now too, where it's, I tried to hire a manager, I tried to hire a shop assistant, and you just don't get people who give a shit. So, like,
Yeah,
like, regardless of how cool the job is, it's still just a job to them. But once they realize that that's how they're going to prove themselves to eventually learn how to tattoo, if that's what they want, I noticed that they care more. They like put more into it and they're more invested in it and in the shop itself. So I'm kind of leaning in that direction too. I really liked, so I just came out and did a guest spot at your shop last month, and I I loved how you run your shop, which again is so different than a lot of the places that I've been. I've done a lot of guest spots, and I'm just like, man, like they have their shit together. They like this is how I want my shop to run. Like I'm very I'm not type A. I force myself to be type A so that I can function. So everything in my shop has a system and everything because I just need it to be that way. But I walk into your shop and like you've got fucking systems. It's like posted on the wall. Like they know exactly like everybody knows exactly what to do at all times and where everything is. It's all labeled. I was like, yes, I love this. So is that how you started? Like how long did it take you to get to that point? Like how long has your shop been open?
so we opened in 2011, and I will say, as much as it feels good to hear you say that it looks awesome from the outside, there's always just tons of things on the inside that aren't running as smooth as they may seem on the outside. I learned this about myself a long time ago. Like I built I built a fence around my backyard, and I knew every little nail that was crooked, everything that wasn't in there like solid. And I was like, you know what? I'd rather just pay someone to do it because I'll know all the little things. And so when you look at something from the outside, it can have all these like little things, but you just don't notice them. You're just looking at the fence as a whole. And so I would say with you coming in a loose screw, you're looking at the fence as a whole, but there's definitely some bent nails in the background for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I feel like any business is gonna have that. It's always a work in progress too. But
Always, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I when I first opened my shop, I was like, I'm just gonna show up and tattoo and go home, I'm like, I
Oh
have no
yeah.
rules, whatever. And now like it looks very different. And I think it scares a lot of artists away, the way that I
Yeah.
run my shop, and I'm sure it's the same for you. Um, the phrase diplomatic bullshit has come up once or twice. And I just, it's fine for me. Like, if that's not the environment that you want to work in, cool. There's plenty of shops out there that aren't like that. But I find that the more structure and the more systems I have, the more freedom the artists have to just be artists and not have to worry about all the other stuff that, if you were just showing up tattooing going home, everything gets messy. So if you
Yeah.
don't have like a way of doing things that's going to check all the boxes and get things done, it gets out of control real fast. So I personally love that environment, so I appreciated it.
Yeah, and it's also, it helps. It's like any relationship, if you've established all your boundaries right at the beginning, then the people who are okay with those boundaries are going to stay with you, and the ones that aren't will go somewhere else, but you're figuring out the problems way before they happen. And when I first opened my shop, it was like I didn't really have a lot of rules, And then people started doing things where I'm like, this could be very bad for the business or bad for, um, the shop and all that stuff. And so I slowly had to start tightening up these rules. And I didn't really know what my boundaries were when I first opened the shop. I in my mind just assumed everybody was like me and they were going to, have their drawings ready and be to work on time and like, treat people nice and stuff like that. And then you open a shop and you've got, you know, tons of different ways of people doing things. Some people are showing up hours late. Some people are saying things to their clients that maybe they shouldn't. And
Yeah.
so you have to start establishing these like kind of universal rules on what you want your brand, your shop brand to be able to reflect. So yeah, I'm about 15 years in on these systems and diplomatic bullshit and that stuff, but I feel good about the where the shop's at, and I feel good about the all the stuff that I've put in place. It doesn't feel good when someone's talking negatively about your business. But I also realize that just like everything, there's what you're doing is not going to be for everyone.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Do you have any new like projects and things that you're working on? Want to spill some beans?
Eh, I mean, nothing like new. I mean, I've got a pretty significant mural coming up that I'm excited about. Got a bunch of travel plans. Um, but yeah, nothing new. A lot of just wheels that are still spinning that I already had in place. And I guess to go back to what you were talking about of if I ever come up with an idea, how does that typically work? I think, you know, the whole like spending bandwidth thing is kind of like spending money. Like if you've got $1 million, your aspirations and your ideas of what you want as far as like house and car and stuff like that are going to be different than if you only have $1. And I think it's the same thing with my ideas. Like if I have unlimited bandwidth, then I'm going to try to act on every idea that I have. If I'm underwater and I feel like I've got too much on my plate, then typically I'll kind of like sideline one of those ideas until later on down the road when I have more bandwidth. And if by that time I've forgotten about it, then it wasn't really worth doing anyways. But if it's still in the back of my head, then I'm like, okay, I got to do that thing back then that I was thinking about. And I did that once. I don't know if you were you familiar with any of my April Fool's jokes that I did?
I remember the dog one.
The
Like
dog
the
one.
yeah, like the dog tattoos.
Did you do you remember the one that I did with the parking tickets?
No.
So I did one with parking tickets where basically like we laced the entirety of Richmond. Like we put out 15,000 parking tickets on all the cars in Richmond. And that idea, basically you would have the parking ticket and then when you go to your car, you're like all frustrated. Then you open it up and it says, April Fools, hope we didn't piss you off too much. Here's $50 towards your next tattoo.
Oh my God,
This
that's
was
genius.
it was pretty cool. But that idea I actually had like 15 years prior, when I was going to college. I remember being like, man, if I ever have my own business, I'm just going to do like parking tickets on everybody's cars. And, it just kind of stayed in the back of my head. And then eventually, I was like, man, we need to do this as an April Fool's joke. And so we ended up doing it and it did really well. I mean, there was
That's
a couple of people that were pissed off, but for the most part, I think everybody got the humor in it.
yeah, that's funny. I love that. I used to go flyer parking lots all the time. Never had any great ideas like that though. But that's
Yeah,
like, I mean, that's shit that people don't do anymore, you know?
right.
I did a whole episode on like how to drum up business basically for people who don't know how to do that outside of the internet. But, you know, when in the beginning, in the before times, before there was fucking Instagram and I think it was probably even before MySpace. I don't even know. But yeah, like that's shit that we would do, go out there and fucking put flyers on all the cars and like speak to people. Scary.
Yeah, I
But
know.
yeah,
It's
that's
crazy.
you had to have those like the genius fucking ideas, or having like the coasters at the local bars and stuff like that. It's I think it's a lost art. People, what is that? Is that guerrilla marketing? Is that considered guerrilla marketing? Like the weird stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Well, and I think that's the thing with marketing, right? It's like once everybody's doing it, then it doesn't work anymore. So you always
Right.
have to think about what's the new thing that hasn't been done yet. And I think I've been through a bunch of phases of those, and as I'm sure you have, like back before Instagram and the internet was prevalent. I remember doing die cut stickers, and die cut stickers were so expensive. This was back in like 2002. Die cut stickers were so expensive that nobody had them. And so I would pay that extra money to get those die cut stickers, and I would just plaster them all over the place. And that was kind of like the way that we would get jobs back then. I mean, I got a job doing some skateboard designs because I would do these stickers with this little character, and at the top it would say "Need art" with a question mark, and then it would have like the website underneath it. Um, but then, of course, yeah, I was probably one of the first people on Instagram. Not one of the first people, but like one of the first, I guess, tattoo artists that was utilizing it. And so being at the beginning kind of gave me that opportunity to really benefit from it. Um, I remember when I was in college, people were making fun of me because I was putting my art on my website. And like back then I was doing murals and tattooing and airbrushing, but always just trying to like figure out how to stand out, amongst the millions of people out there. And right now, the internet is just every human's on the internet. So if you're going to stick out, sometimes the best way is just to be in person.
Yeah, uh I think people start to get stuck because they just have like that one track mind, like I have to post stuff on the internet to get business. And um I had a couple people just recently, the same day for whatever reason, asking me for help with getting booked up locally. Like they do fine when they travel or do conventions and stuff, but they have a hard time when they're home getting clients at home. And I'm like, that's the easiest way. Like, how are you struggling with that? But it's because their their Instagram or whatever platform they're using is appealing to like the masses and not their local community. And I'm like, damn, like, okay, like I can teach you that. That's to me, it's like so easy and common sense, but to them it's not, because that's just how they like, that's the world they grew up in, in their careers. But yeah, it's definitely like a lost art. But
Are these people at your shop or are these people outside of your shop?
hey, a little bit of both.
Okay, cool.
So,
Well, the
but
good thing is if they're at your shop, I mean, they should be benefiting from being at your shop, right?
yeah, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna hire the one girl. She's interested in working here. So I was gonna help her regardless whether she, came to work with me or not. But um and then one of them is one of my friends in Florida. But yeah, I think I'm pretty good at local stuff, but my I hate taking the time to teach somebody something and give them my advice and like tell them how to do it and then them not listen to me. So I'm hoping that these people will actually listen to me and not just be like cool ideas and do nothing with it. So, but
No,
that's the hard part, is like getting them to believe what I say and then go do it. So, but we'll
yeah, I
see.
mean, I say this all the time. I've critiqued a lot of portfolios, and most of the time when I critique a portfolio, by the end of it, I say, hey, I give my ideas of what I think could make their portfolio better, and then I say, hey, come back and see me in about 6 months, and let's see where you're at. And to this date, I've never had anyone come back in 6 months.
Wow.
And it's,
Damn, really?
and who knows, maybe they learned something or maybe they didn't. Or maybe they just, I mean, I think some people just don't want to hear it.
Mhm.
They just want you to see their work. They don't really care about the advice that you can give them.
Yeah, they want you to tell them how great they are.
Yeah, and some people, specifically in like your situation, some people just want to bitch about things. And they
Yeah,
just want someone to listen. They don't really
yeah,
want solutions. And I mean, I get it. There's times where I say stuff where I'm like, I don't really want a solution. I just want to vent.
yeah. That's right. You say, do you want my advice or are you just venting? Like, I feel like I
Right.
have to say that all the time. But yeah, that's one of my biggest pet peeves is just I mean, I just always want to fix things. Like if someone's asking or if someone's venting to me, my immediate response is like, "Oh, do this, this, and this," you know. And no, I'm, you know, that's probably not the best for
Well, I
everybody,
think that's
but
interesting because you were saying that you're not type A, but that's a type A attribute right there. And then, a lot of the stuff you do, all these systems, and you're very proactive on stuff. So it's odd to me that you don't think you're a type A.
I think I'm highly self-aware at this point in my life. I spent a lot of my life not being aware of myself at all.
Sure.
You met that person
I did.
back in the day, and so I think that being as self-aware as I am, like I just know how my brain works, and I know, like, yeah. But then at the same time, I want to help people the way that I'm helping myself, or the way that I wish somebody was helping me. So, um, yeah, I have always been a fixer though. That's something that's not new, but yeah.
I think
Um,
that's the best thing though too, is like the people who are most successful are the ones that can uh, you know, solve their own mistakes or fix their own problems. And then also are very introspective. Like they can see when they're like slacking on something and they're, trying to figure out solutions on how to keep from slacking. I remember when I used to just do things at my house when I lived alone. If I needed to, whatever, do the dishes or whatnot, I would take like a clean fork and like put it in the middle of the kitchen just so I wouldn't forget like something to just like trigger that thought like, hey, uh, or, just kind of disrupting the environment to like kind of force you to move in a certain direction. I used to only have 7 pairs of underwear to force me to do laundry once a week because I would never do laundry if I had 100 pairs of underwear.
right.
So, just setting yourself up for you know, setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, and it's like uh, whenever whenever I used to go to all these like seminars and things, I kind of stopped doing them because I feel like um I've gathered all this information I haven't used yet. But I was like in this mode where I was like going to all these conventions, getting all this advice, learning all these things, and then not fucking doing anything with it. But like I knew it, I knew the stuff. Someone could say it to me, and I could, recite it back, or ask me a question about it. I knew exactly what I had learned, but I wasn't using any of it. And I had to kind of do a similar thing where I had to set up triggers to remind myself to do these things that I fucking learned. Otherwise, I'm just like on autopilot. And that was like, I think like the first step at me forcing myself to be more self-aware. And I think just like in the being a tattoo artist, I think you have to, if you ever want to progress in this career, you have to check yourself because no one's doing it for you. Especially if
Sure.
you're a shop owner, no one's checking in on you to see like if you're doing what you said you were gonna do or like hitting the goals that you made for yourself. Like it's just you and you. So,
You
um,
know who's always checking you is your clients and your disgruntled employees.
yeah, that is
Like
very true. Yeah,
I know
but
everybody's always like, "Oh man, I want to open a shop to work for myself." And it's like, "Well, you're not working for yourself at that point. You're
mm,
working for your employees, you're working for your clients. Like you'll never really be working for yourself.
yeah. But if you're not taking that feedback from your client as feedback, as like what you could be improving, like you're never going to hear that message. But yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, you have to be receptive to it.
yeah. Um, so what is something that you want people to know about you that they might not know about you?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that
Sorry.
would be. Um, yeah, I don't know that there's much that I keep out of. I mean, I probably don't put my family life out there as often or my political opinions and stuff like that, but I almost feel like that's by default for me. I want my artwork and the things that I build to be at the forefront of people's thoughts about what I'm doing. And then as they get to know me, then they start getting to know all the other stuff.
What is it you are trying to build? Like what is your what is it you're trying to do in the tattoo industry? Like, what kind of impact do you want to have when it's all said and done? Like, what do you want people to remember about you?
I mean, hopefully that I've made it better than when I got into it. Hopefully I've kind of like bent the direction of the tattoo industry in a positive way.
I think you have so far. At least in
Thanks.
my world, you have. um, any advice to tattooers that are just starting out?
I mean, I think it's the same advice that I give everybody is draw as much as possible. Always draw, just keep drawing, 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 and drawing with intention, trying to, just better your skills as an artist. I think the application process of tattooing is a relatively easy thing to learn. The drawing is something that takes a long time. I mean, I've been drawing almost my entire life, and I still feel like I get perspectives wrong and light sources wrong and flow wrong and all these things that are getting wrong, and that's just drawing over and over and over and learning and being introspective and looking at your drawings with a critical eye. The application process is, there's no real tricks with the application process where your artwork's going to go from 0 to 100, and using the special needle or the special machine, or, there might be some problems like maybe you're overworking the skin, and you could show someone how not to do that. But I think overall the application is the same as like, it's like the same as learning how to paint, learning how to tattoo, learning how to airbrush, learning how to spray paint. As long as you figure out how to make the marks the way that you want to make them, all the rest of it's in your head.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if people want to know more about you, where should they go? Website, social media, all of that?
Yeah, you can just go to jessesmithtattoos.com, or under Instagram, it's Jesse Smith Tattoos. And just Google Jesse Smith Tattoos and
Google.
something will show up.
There's a lot about you on Google, by the way.
Yeah, there you
I was
go.
like,
See?
let me just see if there's any information about him I don't know. And I was like, Jesus Christ. Okay. But thank you so much for being on the show again. I appreciate you and hope to catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And of course, you're always welcome back to do a guest spot anytime you want.
Hell yeah. I'm down.